All right, also in Blackboard, in today's learning plan, I have directions for the homework. I'm going to hand out in class a paper version of it, but this is the digital version of it, and then your Dropbox is there as well. So this is what we're going to be going through. And it's basically what we did in chapter 13 in the textbook, making a website mock-up, but we're not going to start with their file. You guys are going to make your own original file. Okay. So I would recommend that you reference your book as you're working on this to remind yourself of the steps and what you kind of did and what I'm looking for. So you're going to be creating a web page mock-up in Photoshop similar to that museum one that we just did. However, this website is something you enjoy. A fake website, a real website, whatever. So it's going to be text, graphics of some content that you enjoy. So dogs or comics or hot rods or whatever. Okay? The requirements. Your overall image size in Photoshop is in pixels. So remember, we have to set our thing to pixels. 1024 is kind of a typical desktop resolution. So that's going to be our width. And then I'm going to say 1300 pixels tall. But if you need it to be taller to accommodate your design, that's fine. But remember, web pages load typically on a rectangle like this. So if you have a really long home page, only the top half of it is getting viewed at any one time. So that's kind of where you want to keep all of your important stuff. We don't want it to get super deep. But if you need it to get a little deep for this purpose, that's perfectly fine. All right. I'm going to have you create something very much like we did in our project where, let me grab that so we can talk about it. Desktop 13, where are you? 13, why are these not even in order? All right, so at the top, you're going to have a logo. Don't freak out about making a logo. If you don't know how to make logos, a logo can be typed. But the logo and or the name of the company and some information usually goes up here. So just use the type tool and figure that out. Okay, have fun with that, but that's not my biggest worry. The next part is I do want there to be a big image, and you're going to practice using frames. You're not instantly putting the pictures in here. You're pretending that you're doing this for a client. They're telling you there's going to be one big picture and 4 buttons, but you don't have them yet. So with the frame tool, you're going to put in a 940 pixel by 240 pixel frame and wait for a photo. Then you're going to add a text box, kind of like they did here. You're going to write something about your web page. And then you're going to add a minimum of 4 frames for buttons. These don't have to be squares. It talks about when you're using the frame tool, in the book and in the tooltips, if you want those to be circles, you hold down the ellipse frame tool and shift and drag and you get a perfect circle. Okay, so then you can have circle buttons instead with pictures inside. A minimum of 4 of them. Then you're going to add a footer with some text. So if you want to kind of copy what they did and have a background color, just make sure that the type you can read it. It doesn't have to be this detailed, but typical, look at websites, see what's normally in a footer. Okay, do a little research on that. That's not that tough. At this point, I want you to stop and name this frames.psd, and that's going to be one of the things you're going to upload to me. So when I open it, I'm going to see all the text, all the layout. You're going to use a grid to make it. You're going to use these lines to make sure things are lined up. Don't eyeball it. Use those rules to help. So I'm going to see it with a bunch of gray X's in it, the frames. That's going to be one thing. Then I want you to go back and, oh, your client has photos. Yay. Then I want you to put the photos in using that insert into frame tool that we use. So plop in the big picture and a minimum of 4 smaller pictures. And then I want you to add a color block and text to the buttons similar to what we did in this class, where we put the blue and then we wrote something there. So your button is not just going to be a picture. somehow, some way, maybe you're creative and you make it a triangle at the bottom and it says something there, or it's at the top, or it's at the left side, I don't care. Just some way that you add an overlay of a color band with text so that it identifies what that button does. Okay. Then that's going to be your final mock-up. You're going to save a PSD of that with a different file name. The other one was called frames, so this one can be whatever you name it. That's the second piece that's going to get uploaded to Blackboard. And then I'm going to have you export the 4 buttons as PSDs with a drop shadow. So when you make these buttons, do something fun to them, but for sure a drop shadow. So do you remember how we had to bring it into a new document and give it some blank space around it so that it had breathing room to add that drop shadow? Make sure that you can do that. If that's required. It has to have a drop shadow. And then you're going to export just those buttons. So what we did was we selected all of the layers and we said export all the layers from the layers menu item up here. And it showed all the options, and there was this, there was the header, there was this picture, there were all of these. You can turn off the stuff that you don't want by checking on it, or just select what you want, the buttons, in your layer panel. Just select that one layer, or those 4 layers if you have them separate, all your buttons, and then go up to this menu item and say export as, and do that. So I'm going to have 6 PSDs. You're going to upload 6 different PSDs. The frame one, the final mock-up, and then your 4 buttons. Make sense? Follow the book. It's almost exactly like the book was, but using your own content and starting with nothing. You're not starting with that starting file. That's the critical thinking and challenge part to it. Okay? All right. You have the rest of the day, but make sure, I want to see your 3-dimensional vanishing point before you leave. Yeah, put something in there. Yep. It doesn't have to be a lot, but kind of make it look like a mock-up for a real website. Kind of have a little fun with it rather than always following exact directions. Do something that you enjoy.